Well, this regressive faggot beta cuck has finally decided to sit down and do the video that he promised to do on the Golden One. So, this time I'm just going to sit back and laugh because he did a video called His Thoughts on Hitler, and I actually found the video hilarious. The video is about 5 minutes long, so it'll be a very quick response, but I think you guys should watch because I think you guys might find it as hilarious as I do. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Greetings, true friends.
It was funnier when you called your subscribers Legionnaire. Well, let's move on.
Today I want to talk a bit about something that's been a long time coming. I've gotten this question a good few times now. I'm going to talk about
Please be Adolf Hitler, please be Adolf Hitler, please be Adolf Hitler.
Adolf Hitler and the Second World War.
And a white nationalist somewhere jizzed in their pants after that very disturbing impression of a nationalist jerking off. Hope you enjoyed that. Okay, now to move on.
Before I begin, I would like to say a few things, and that is that I'm not accountable to anyone except myself. My only allegiance is to Mother Sweden and Mother Europe.
Trust me, this is where the shit that comes out of the Golden One's mouth starts to get fucking hilarious.
I am not in any way subject to the social norms of the society. I am above that. It might sound a bit cocky, to be honest, I agree, but it is what it is.
You're right, it is what it is. It's absolute fucking arrogance. I mean, of course, this is a guy who I don't take seriously on anything, which is why I decided to do another response to him, because I find him absolutely laughable. But, yeah, not only is it what it is, which I think what it is that he's trying to basically play this, while I agree with Hitler, I am not, I don't hate the British and I don't hate the European countries that Hitler invaded. So it's him trying to have his cake and eat it too, with the whole, his only allegiance is modern Europe. And yeah, when it comes to the he's a god, it's like a reoccurring shtick on his channel that he's like this god of nature. I can't even remember the whole fucking thing correctly, but yeah, it's... Okay, let's just quickly move on.
Stand above the opinions of mere mortals, I do. So with that said, let us have a mature and intellectual discussion about Adolf Hitler and the Second World War.
Oh, this should be fun. Yeah. Mature and intellectual. Are you sure you are not just satire? I mean, just the few videos that I've seen on his channel, this guy's either satire or he's absolutely, like, lacks self-awareness and lacks any kind of, like, objectivity. I'd actually kind of love to live in this guy's world, like, to just... where I think that I'm like a god and I think that I'm just the greatest. I mean, yeah. That's funny. He sees himself as an intellectual. A mature and intellectual conversation about Adolf Hitler. Let's move on before I absolutely die laughing.
Now, first of all, we've all seen the bad side of Adolf Hitler. I'd suggest that you have a glimpse at the good sides, as it were. I will link the greatest story never told below, so you can get an alternate view of things. For me, Adolf Hitler was a very accomplished economist, and that's basically it. I want to elaborate a bit on World War II in this video because that's the important thing here. Now, I don't want to take a side there. I don't want to say like, oh, this is Team Hitler or this is Team Churchill or anything like that.
Seems like you're stumbling over yourself a bit. So first you're talking about the good side. I mean, I'm glad you admit that there's a fucking bad side to Adolf Hitler, but it's not just a bad side. He was just absolutely a bad person. Um, when it comes down to it, the man was an absolute fucking imperialist, wanted to see the whole world under his banner. And the guy had a hatred for a bunch of different races. But then again, I understand too that you're a nationalist and you kind of agree with Adolf Hitler. I don't think there was any good side to him. I don't think there were any good things that he did. I don't think that he necessarily thought he was an evil guy or thought that what he was doing. I think he did think that it was more moral. And that's where it comes down to, like, this guy just had a shitty fucking view of the world. This world where certain people were inferior just by virtue of being who they are. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ.
This is Team Modern Europe. And with that said, I don't want to take anyone's side there. I don't want to hail up Hitler. I don't want to hail the Allies either.
No, I agree. I don't want to hail either side either. Especially not Hitler's side. I mean, there was a lot of stuff when it comes to both the Allies and the Axis powers. So yeah, the Allies could be pretty fucking terrible too. But when it comes to who was worse, all the qualities that the Allies had that were absolutely terrible, Adolf Hitler had more of them. And he had extra stuff on top of that. So when it comes to an objective view, I look at it as who is worse. It is clearly Hitler. So while I don't praise the Central Powers the Allies, the Allied powers, the Allies, whatever. How the fuck it's slipping my mind for a second, but yeah, there were terrible. There was a lot of terrible things on that side, and again, those are things that I don't like, that I'm absolutely against. But the fact that both sides had those things means that I can't just suddenly exempt Hitler because Churchill was an imperialist and a racist when it came to how he treated the Indians. He blamed them for their own famine. I mean, as many problems as I have with Mao, he didn't blame his people for the famine that happened. The famine was just something that happened, and he stopped eating certain foods simply to show the fact, to try and, it was not an intended disaster. And again, I'm not a fan of Mao. I'm just saying that when it comes down to it, like, there's a lot of things that were much better, or that a dictator like Mao managed to be a lot better on that issue than the Central Power, or the, why do I keep calling them the Central Powers, the Allied powers. Okay, let's move on.
It was a stupid fucking war between brothers that only served to destroy Europe to no purpose whatsoever.
I agree with you. It was a stupid war, to an extent, but also you've got to look at the fact that if you look at what actually started and caused the war, what factors led to it, that's what makes it stupid, and not the fact that fascism was being fought. If you look at World War One, when the Central Powers were defeated, basically everyone pinned the start of the war on Germany, even though not just the Central Powers, but the Allies all were involved in starting it. Well, the U.S. wasn't involved in starting it, but the U.S. was unnecessarily involved in the war because they decided to sell to Britain because war profiteering, essentially the military-industrial complex, is a little bit different, but yeah, they were essentially profiting off of war because they knew if Britain won, they would get paid for all the stuff they were supplying Britain with. So when Germany basically attacked American ships, America decided to get involved. But of course, what the fuck do you think is going to happen if you get involved? It really wouldn't have mattered if the Central Powers had won in World War One. World War II would have never happened, at least not the way that it did. But because you essentially had an economically destroyed Germany, this created a lot of anger. Funny enough, you can see this with Donald Trump, is that you see all this anger coming from people who have been economically disenfranchised. Of course, they're looking at the wrong system. And no, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is going to rise to power. I'm simply saying you can see the same kind of ire in his supporters. So you have an economically disenfranchised base. It was much worse in the aftermath of World War One for the Germans. So you have this guy who comes along with not the most right-wing economic system, but he's still right-wing, and the guy's an absolute authoritarian, and he can manage to blame every other group for their economic disenfranchisement. Blame the Jews, which is part of why the Jews got thrown into gas chambers and killed. So you actually look at what started World War II, it was World War I. World War I was a pointless war. It was a war of empires, and while I say it's pointless, in the end I think it was necessary to get the kind of system that I think that the world should have, that having the empires and the monarchies basically destroy themselves was a good thing. This destroyed the Germans' monarchy. This destroyed Germany's monarchy, destroyed Russia's monarchy. That's why the Soviet Union rose in its place. So you have a very complicated stew of things that actually led to it. You can't just say that it was a war among brothers that served to destroy Europe. One, the intention was not to destroy Europe. The intention was basically to win a biggest dick contest, which is the most pointless contest to ever have. Alright, shall we move on?
I'm not on anyone's side in that conflict. I'm completely neutral because right now I have true friends from England and from Germany watching. We're Team Europe here. I have true friends from Finland and Norway, Ireland, the Netherlands. So in that complex...
You do realize there were British Nazi sympathizers, right? That on both sides of things you had Nazi sympathizers. You also had Allied sympathizers in Nazi Germany, mainly because they were either left-wing or because they just did not agree with the genocide of Jews, or they were Jewish them fucking selves. I mean, Albert Einstein escaped Nazi Germany and went to America. I'm pretty sure it was before World War II actually started and before the Holocaust actually happened, but he was born in Germany. He was a German Jew. Even though he wasn't religious, he was of Jewish descent, would be the proper word for it. So, yeah, you did have Nazi sympathizers, both in Britain and in America. I mean, you had fucking French volunteers, although this one is a little bit different of a situation, but you did have French volunteers for the Nazis in Nazi-occupied France. So, yeah, that doesn't mean, just because they're from Britain doesn't mean they automatically don't support Hitler. But then again, you don't have to support Hitler to be a nationalist either. But I mean, to be neutral on that war is, in a way, kind of a fucked up stance. Because you're basically saying, well, I don't care about the genocide. I mean, at least you're not saying that you're for the genocide, but saying I don't care about the genocide is absolutely fucking disgusting.
European war, I don't want to take a side, because why would I take the German side and not the English side? And why would I take the English side and not the German side? The Germans invaded France. The Germans also terror bombed London. The English terror bombed Dresden. Both sides committed horrendous transgressions. Realize this, there are no good and evil, there's only tribes and nations fighting against each other.
In a fucked up way, I do kind of agree. I don't think either side was good, and that it ultimately was tribes. But when it comes down to whether good and evil were at stake, Hitler's world would have been absolutely pure fucking evil, considering the Holocaust of the Jews. And don't give me that he was only targeting the international Jewish banking community, or whatever the fuck you said in one of your videos, because he seemed to target Jews pretty indiscriminately, and I know this because I have family that actually escaped the Holocaust. They were not part of the international Jewish banking conspiracy that supposedly was what Hitler was targeting. No, he was targeting the Jews and blaming the Jews. There were a few Jews that he let off, one being his childhood doctor, because his childhood doctor treated him, and while his mother didn't have enough money to pay for a doctor. So he kind of decided that he would make the guy an honorary Aryan despite him being a Jew. There was one example in the SS, and Eva Braun, they did a DNA test and they found that she had Catholic descent, and the sect of Catholicism that she was in descended from former Jews. So technically, she was also a Jew. So there were some exceptions, because in many ways it was rather arbitrary, his pick of Jews. But no, it's quite obvious that there was evil. So there was really only one evil and another evil. So you've got so there was a clear lesser evil, and that was the Allies. But what would I know? I'm just a beta leftist.
For me, I say, let us not take any side, no matter if you're German or English or whatever fucking European country you're from. We don't need to take a side in that conflict. We can only say to ourselves, like, okay, that was a fucking stupid thing to do, both in World War One and World War Two. So I don't want to use Hitler aesthetics in my work. I say we leave that. We have transcended that. We're not subject to that anymore. This is a whole European thing. And if I say, like, oh, Hitler was so good and everything, what do I say to my French true friends, for example, or my Dutch true friends that were occupied by the Germans during the war?
I wouldn't know, but then again, nationalism is quite a fucking weird philosophy that it causes a lot of situations like this, because there's not a clear conviction. As much as you like what Hitler did, or what Hitler's goals were, you have nationalists who aren't fans of Hitler because, I don't know, maybe just some bad blood about what happened in World War II. So, really, like, I don't know. So I think this is probably, again, I'm not trying to give you ideas for your channel, but this is probably the best stance that you can take, is if you're trying to be a nationalist but not praise Hitler, is to just not praise Hitler and not be on a side in World War II. But quite honestly, I think in many ways you're just overreacting. I don't think you'd lose your base of subscribers because you come out as a big fan of Hitler. But then again, I'm just guessing because of the fact that your base is white nationalists, and Hitler was a white nationalist, so they'd meld together quite well.
I can't take a side like that. This is Team fucking Europe, so I'm on Europe's side against the Islamization of Europe. That is where we're coming from. We don't need to take a fucking side and be like, oh, church.
So in the end, it really comes down to this fucked up, everybody in Europe should be racist and should be nationalist, and that's why I'm not taking a side. It's not for any moral reasons, but I mean, I've already pretty much broken down that it's obviously not moral reasons, but that's essentially what it comes down to. And yes, I have watched the video all the way through. The fact is, he goes on a tangent and he talks about how there's an Islamization of Europe. He's basically saying that like everyone should be a nationalist. Says something about how the beta leftists are afraid of nationalism, but don't realize that nationalism forms because you put a bunch of different people of different ethnicities in one area. Well, yeah, of course you're going to have racists who don't get along, but having an actual nationalist government is what I have a problem with. Not the fact that some people will be nationalists, because you can deal with individual people if there's no power to their actual nationalism, if there's no power behind it, or people who aren't nationalists have more power. And of course, this is a guy who believes that there's like this globalist conspiracy theory. So, I mean, to some extent, I think that there is not a conspiracy, but I do think that there are some problems with the neoliberal systems of free trade and the some things that I might refer to globalism, but in general, I don't think that there's like that opening up borders so that people can live in whatever part of the world that they want is globalism. So if that's what's defined as globalism, I don't think there's any kind of conspiracy for that. But I do think that when it comes to free trade, that we are taking advantage of countries. So yeah, I'm going to end this because there's really nothing else to respond to in the video, and it's just a tangent, and you can look it up right on his channel. It'll probably be one of the first fucking videos to pop up. So I'm gonna go. You can like this video, subscribe, and comment if you want to call me a faggot beta cuck, because, well, your comment will get deleted, but if you just want to make sure that that message gets to me. And you'll also be able to find the links to my Twitter and my Facebook page, and not my personal Facebook, but a Facebook that uses a pseudonym that is one that I use. So it's personal in that sense, but it's not under my real name. And you'll also be able to find the link to my Patreon, where if you donate, I will... No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not... I can't really say what I'll do for you, but if you donate, it can help improve the equipment that I have and to help me improve the channel. So, I will have another video out soon, and the next one will be about Rick and Morty, and I'll also be doing a hangout with, so far, the people who have claimed interest in doing so are Danny Corks, Steve Shives, and and Natalie Alford, doing a hangout the day before the election to talk about the election. And I will keep you all updated on that. Talk to you later. Bye.